Batman.
We've had Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Christian Bale, now Robert Pattinson. What do we need another Batman for, and is it any good? I think absolutely so. I think regardless of whether or not it is bringing anything new to the table, this one does. But regardless if it was or it wasn't, I think that this is a character that needs to continue being changed, ramped up, kind of evolve along with the times, a lot like James Bond. Going into this, I'm just going to say I really like this one. I am very in tune with anything that likes to take a story even darker. I love dark movies. But the thing that makes this movie unique is that it is committed to making everything as down to earth as possible. And by doing that, it turns it into much more of a detective story, meaning that it focuses so much more on the side of Batman that we hardly ever see. It's always taken for granted in the other movies that he's very good at that. It's very nice to see this one kind of come more to life in terms of being a detective. It's nice that it's focusing on the early days. We're only 2 years in, meaning that Bruce Wayne isn't even as fully formed as the Batman character is, and Batman isn't even a very formed character in this movie. Almost in the middle of the movie, I had a feeling like, am I being cheated out of this? Because this doesn't feel like a Batman movie. By the end of it, though, it's very satisfying to feel like we are actually watching not Batman being created. We're watching Batman exist, but not really know so much what he's supposed to be doing. And I feel like that is a very refreshing angle for this character, and that is rooted in that the movie decides to be very down to earth. I don't know if it translates so well for the Riddler. I like the Riddler. I like that they focus on the character being much more of a serial killer, but there is something about the down to earth thing. There's a warring with the fact that obviously we're watching a comic book movie, the Christopher Nolan series. It did kind of dive headfirst into the action sense, the comic book sense, the thrilling sense, while still kind of going for a few more realistic elements. This one, I feel like it's having a tough time with embracing its down-to-earthness. I feel like there's a warring between the down-to-earthness and also wanting to be as extravagant, wanting to be as action-packed, particularly there is a large set piece that happens near the end. It felt like it was getting close to jumping the shark near the end. I think it did a good job of it, but it felt like dangerous territory. There's something about it going from being a smaller scale story to taking the leap to being a very big, very high stakes story. It felt like it wasn't quite making the jump from down to earth to classic Batman action, Gotham explosion, fantasticalness. It felt like there was something wrong with that. And honestly, part of me feels like it might be too soon to really be judging this movie in some ways, particularly, and I think that might have something to do with it being grounded because we haven't really seen this Batman come to its full fruition, because this Batman is not quite sure exactly what their place is in the world. This movie is about them finding their place in Gotham City. We might need to wait to see in, the next installment. We're going to get 3 of these movies. How is it that this world really operates? This might really just be more of an introduction, but because it's such a big movie, it feels like it has to carry the weight of a trilogy. I'm excited that it's going to be a trilogy because I think that we could see this world be more defined. But one thing I am worried about is, are we going to be able to have a good marriage of the huge Batman action elements fused with the down-to-earth sensibility? I love the down-to-earth sensibility. I also love the high-stakes Batman action sequences. Just, interested to see, are they going to be able to meld them together? I love that deleted scene came out, though, because seeing that the Joker was able to strike a tone there, I think is very encouraging that they will be able to do it. There was just something in the Riddler kind of going from small-scale idea to huge-scale idea that felt like, I think they pulled it off, but it felt less confident than everything else that was going on in the movie. In terms of the movies that I would recommend you to watch, this Batman movie would not be able to exist if it was not for the movies of the 70s, because the movies of the 70s were all about the cynic, the good guy not really knowing if what they're doing is correct, you not knowing if the good guy is actually the good guy. It's really the time of the anti-hero, meaning things like French Connection and the way that it focuses on violence, Chinatown, the way that it focuses on mystery, The Conversation and the way that it focuses on surveillance. But really, this Batman is not able to exist if not for Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver. That movie is about a man who realizes that he is on a mission, but really what you are having to ask yourself, and what makes the movie so good, is that you are unsure if that person is on an actual good mission. What is the difference between someone doing something right and doing something wrong, especially if we're talking in terms of someone going out there and saving lives in the way that a vigilante would? How do you know that what you're doing is correct? How do you know that you're not making things worse? How do you know that you're not just doing this because you have problems problems that you aren't working out, and you're kind of justifying it to go out and, you know, help people, but you could be wreaking havoc in the end. That's what Taxi Driver puts on the screen. It doesn't deal with it as much. It makes it a much better movie because obviously it's more of an art house movie. It is much more of a having to reckon with your own demons type of movie. This movie uses that type of philosophy, though, as a roadmap. And it does answer some of the questions, but it uses that as a roadmap for Batman. And that is one of the best scenes. If I'm not going to give where it happens, whenever he hears another person say that they are vengeance, and someone that he sees as the villain say that they are vengeance, it's such a good moment where we see Batman having to reckon with what it means to actually be a good guy. Are you a good guy because you say you're on a certain team, or does it actually take your certain actions and your certain intentions to show that you're a good guy? And, you know, you have to constantly be working to make sure that you are a good guy. So many people said about Dune, they said, how can we judge this movie? We don't have the second part. It's not a complete story. I think Dune is an incredibly complete story. I think that movie can stand on its own as a very good story. I think you have an arc of a character being set out on a mission. It's a great point to end it. It feels obviously like you need the second part, but it's a very well-told unit on its own. This one, I think, feels so much more like an incomplete story, not in a bad way. It feels a certain level of, I liked this a lot. I've seen it twice now. That's 6 hours. I like it a lot. I would go and see it again in IMAX. But I really want to see more before making a decision because this character is so unresolved. And the movie knows that it's an unresolved character. And I love the world. I'm hyped to see what is coming next. And you know what? Batman Begins was very much the same way. We don't talk about Batman Begins as much as we do The Dark Knight. I think this has done a great job of setting up the character, but I'm still very excited and feel the need to see where this character goes to know that we are dealing with a really fantastic Batman. But from what we're seeing here, I really think that we might have a fantastic Batman. What are your thoughts on the movies? Do you think that there are other movies that this movie is feeding off of? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We also have a Patreon now. Every single Friday, there's a weekly movie update. We get even more news. We dissect it in the movie world. Come and bring your comments, your thoughts, your news stories, and let's hash out what's going on in the entertainment industry. The link is below. $5 a month does a lot to support the channel. Thank you, guys. And also, please subscribe and like 5 Minute Critic for future updates on reviews and movie news.